Today on Ancient Insight, we are going to continue our examination of Shamawat, Exodus 34, 6 through 7, a section of Scripture where Yahweh tells Moshe or Moses about his character. And he passed Yahweh by front of him, and he proclaimed Yahweh, Yahweh God, compassionate and gracious, slow of angers and abundant of love and faithfulness, maintaining love to the thousands, forgiving wickedness and rebellion and sin, yet to leave unpunished, not he will leave unpunished, punishing sin of fathers on children and on children of children, to third ones and to fourth ones. So far, we have examined the words Yahweh and God, and we will now move on to compassionate. Many translations use the word merciful, a specific type of compassion, here instead of compassionate. In ancient Hebrew, the word translated compassionate or merciful is very closely related to the word for bowels, the interior, inside, core, or belly of a person. Let's explore a little to see what insight we can gain from the strange relationship between bowels and compassion. The word translated as compassion in this verse is the ancient Hebrew word rachawam, which today is often pronounced rahum. In ancient Hebrew, this word is spelled with the pictographs rash, chatz, wa, ma. The word rachawam is a derivative noun formed from the child root word racham, resh, chatz, ma. So in order to get to its basic meaning, we must go further back to meet its parent root word, which is rak, rash, kaf. Now wait a minute. How did we suddenly go from rash, chatz, ma to rash, kaf? Wouldn't we expect the parent root word to be rash, chatz? In many languages, including ancient Hebrew, there is a phenomenon whereby similar-sounding letters exchange places with each other through common usage over time. In this particular case, the chatz and the kaf are both guttural fricatives, sounds formed in the throat, and therefore it is reasonable to speculate that they could have changed places over time. The changing of letters has little consequence in most languages as it simply affects pronunciation. But in ancient Hebrew, where each letter represents not only a sound but a concept or idea, the stakes are a lot higher, almost to the point where we must assert that if letters sound alike in ancient Hebrew, then they must mean alike as well. Their meanings would not be identical, but similar. With the higher stakes of meaning on the line, assertion of letter changes must be undertaken carefully by examining the meanings of the child root word and the parent root word, looking for similar traits. In this example, the child root word racham concretely means bowels. When we go looking for the two-letter parent root, we find that there is a root spelled rash kaf, which actually means loins. Loins and bowels are quite nearly identical in meaning, and at the very least are referencing the very same interior, inside, core, or belly of a person. So it becomes even more reasonable to propose or even assert that racham is derived from rak. Please note that from this point on, we will consider the words bowels and loins as synonyms, and we'll be referring to both anytime we say either. For a more detailed explanation of the idea that letters can change over time, you may want to explore the resources shown here. Now, on to our exploration of the parent root word rak. Rak is defined by the concrete words loins and tender. When we look at the pictographs that form this word, we first see the rash. The pictograph for the rash is a picture of the head of a person, and the word rash is defined by the action to inherit, as well as the concrete objects head, top, and summit. By comparing the functions of the objects and actions which define rash, looking for a common theme between them, we can determine its core notion. First, we have the action word inherit. which means to receive something from a greater, older, or more powerful source. That source may be greater due to its wealth, its rank, or its age, but any way we look at it, inherit paints a picture of something flowing down from a higher to a lower position. And second, the objective definition, head. Whether it is the head of a human or the head of a nail, it is the highest point which receives stimulus or information and transmits it to its lower parts. There is a core notion, a common vein of meaning running through the various functions of the letter Rash, the objective head with its innate tendency to direct, and the action of inherit, describing the flowing down from a higher to a lower source. And this core notion may be described as the idea of supremacy, the state of being in the highest station of power. When exploring the effect that the resh has on the words it's found in, we find it helpful to use synonyms for head, such as top, summit, supreme, lead, greatest, superior, or most high. Next to the rash, we see the pictograph kaf, which is the picture of the palm of an open hand and communicates the action to press, as well as the concrete object palm and the abstract idea of tame. By comparing the functions of the objects and actions which define kaf and looking for a common theme between them, we can determine its core notion. First of all, the main function of the objective hand is grasping. The functional design feature that enables a hand to accomplish this unique task lies in its ability to bend, to conform its shape to the shape of whatever it touches in order to grasp it. Secondly, to press is to bring two or more objects together, applying pressure and causing the more pliable of the two to conform to the shape of the other. Next, the abstract word tame is a description of one whose behavioral tendencies have been changed and conformed to be compatible with another. Finally, when the letter kaf is added to the beginning of a word as a prefix, it means like or as. For example, when we add it to the Hebrew word for lion, arai, it becomes ka'arai, and means like a lion, as a lion, conform to the likeness or function of a lion. See Bamadabar, Numbers 24:9. There is a core notion, a common vein of meaning running through the various functions of the letter kaf, the objective palm with its ability to bend, the action of pressing, which forces one thing into the shape of another, and the abstract tame indicating a likening of one's behavior to another, and the indication of likeness expressed by the kaf prefix. And this core may be described as the idea of conformity, being caused to resemble or assume the form or function of another. When exploring the effect that the kaf has on the words that it's found in, we find it helpful to use synonyms such as bent, conformed to, likened to, or as. Looking at these pictographs in combination seems to imply a picture of supremacy conformed, or the superior bent. So the relationship, or the mental point at which bowels and compassion will coincide, is going to be characterized by the concept of supremacy conformed, or the highest bending to something lower. Let's explore further. The ancient Hebrews were bipedal humans, just like us. We share the same biology regardless of the thousands of years between us. So we can rest assured that the things we observe about our bodies today, they likely observed as well. Let's draw a quick and elementary map of the human body to see what we can observe about bowels. Since the word bowels is referring to a particular region of the body, let's assign names to the other regions as well. The arms, legs, hands, and feet, which are all composed of rigid and duplicated bones and provide a person with power, could be described as the extremities. The area of the brain and sensory organs of taste, scent, and sound, all protected by the skull and providing the person with thoughtful interaction with the outside world, can be called the head. The area containing the lungs and heart, providing personal vitality and protected by the ribs could be called the chest. This leaves us with a core belly area containing singular and delicate organs responsible for the essential processing of nourishment and producing offspring, which we refer to as the bowels. Heads are protected by a helmet of bone, capable of turning and ducking to dodge external attack. Extremities are lacking in delicate organs, with the exception of veins and arteries, and are capable of great movement to dodge and block from attack. Not to mention that since the extremities are all present in duplicate, one can afford to lose a limb without necessarily losing their life or power. Chests are fortified with shoulders and ribs, which cage and surround vital organs within, and also are wrapped in layers of flexing muscles capable of receiving multiple blunt blows without receiving major damage. Bowels, however, are supremely vulnerable by comparison to all other regions. Their singular and vital organs are susceptible to attack from 359 horizontal degrees, assuming that the spine could survive a hit. And in order for a person to protect this region, they must recruit the help of the extremities to block and protect, which drastically, if not temporarily, reduces the power of the person to flee or to counterattack. All this is to observe and state that the bowels represent vulnerability. Looking back at the Rash Kaf pictographs, it isn't hard to see a possible implication of man bent. And a man bent is exactly what we see when even the strongest of warriors is threatened with a strike to their loins. The biggest, strongest, most determined and capable surrenders some or all of their power, their ability to affect outwardly, in order to protect their vulnerable and unprotected regions. Imagine for a moment that the regions of the body were capable of independent thought, and the dominant thought or primary objective of the extremities was to affect outwardly, to demonstrate power through action. We could almost say that arms and legs are acting compassionately toward the bowels, as they cease from their outward action and bend into a fetal position, surrounding and protecting the vulnerable bowels from being hit. Now, returning to the scriptures, let's zoom out from the detailed incident of Yahuwah describing himself at Shammawat 34:6 and look at the bigger picture of what's happening here. For within that larger context, Yahuwah has actually demonstrated an example of great compassion. Masha, Moses, is about to lead the Israelites into the promised land, but before beginning on the journey, he asks Yahuwah to teach me your ways, verse 33:13, show me your glory, verse 33:18, which Yahuwah agrees to do at verse 33:17. But Yahuwah then states that Masha, being a man, cannot see his face and live. Verse 33:20. Notice at this point that Yahuwah is aware of Masha's vulnerability. Masha is a human, ha'adam, and cannot survive the intimate and total experience of Yahuwah's darak, his road or ways. Nor can Masha bear the full kabod, weight, or glory of Yahuwah, which he has requested to see. A self-existent, strong leader, which Yahuwah has stated that he is, who did not have compassion, could have simply answered Masha's bold request in the affirmative by showing himself to him face to face, untamed, immediate, and unfiltered, which would have resulted in Masha's death, the truest form of dying from exposure. But Yahuwah demonstrates his extreme compassion by knowing his student's vulnerability and adjusting his approach, conforming to accommodate Masha's tenderness. Yahuwah places Masha into a hole in a rock, and as Yahuwah passes over, he places his hand, which in Hebrew is kaf, over the hole, protecting Masha from face-to-face exposure. In other words, he uses his hand, his kaf, his act of lowering himself, his compassion, his accommodation to Masha's vulnerability as the very thing that shields, covers, and protects Masha until he has passed over him, removing his hand. So Masha's request is granted by being allowed to hear a verbal description of Yahweh's way, which is the verse we are now studying, 34:6-7, as well as being able to see the back of Yahweh after he has passed over, almost as if to say, "You cannot walk my road while looking at my face, but you can follow from behind, walking in my footsteps, stepping where I step." In ancient Hebrew, the word translated compassionate or merciful is very closely related to the word for bowels, the physical embodiment of vulnerability and tenderness. May we all remember that when the ancient Hebrews, the original audience for the scriptures, heard the word rachawam, they couldn't help but think of bowels, tenderness, and vulnerability, and were much closer to understanding that to be rachawam, compassionate, is to be aware of the vulnerability of others and to bend our actions to accommodate, just as we have been accommodated. As our Messiah said, "Be therefore compassionate, as your Father is compassionate." Luke 6:36. We hope you are finding this helpful. May you kneel toward others, presenting gifts, just as our Father has done for us.